Hello and welcome back to the Pop In Podcast. Today I'm doing a solo episode. We'll see how it goes. So I want to start today with a question that I think a lot of us haven't really thought about or maybe even talked about out loud. Maybe we've thought about it but haven't talked about it. And that question is, what if the day that you became a mother wasn't the happiest day of your life? What if it was scary or painful, lonely, or maybe just not at all what you expected? I think that last one's probably true across the board. But what if it was the other things? Or maybe something that I didn't say. What if you loved your baby, but also had something happen that needs healing or that you haven't healed yet or that you just haven't even addressed? And we don't ever talk about that, right? We always kind of gloss over it. We go, yeah, this is what happened, but baby and mom are okay. So that's the most important thing. And we skip over it. Like, what the fuck? So I've been reading this book called, hold on, let me grab it, Brain Fitness Blueprint. And it talks about trauma in the brain and how there's like physical brain injuries and also psychological brain injuries. And we don't really ever, well, I don't know. I guess we're talking more about the psychological injury, but we talk about it like PTSD and, well, depression is a symptom of a psychological brain injury, but we don't treat it like an injury. Okay, so here's a good example. You broke your leg during childbirth or some other sort of thing, and we're relating it to childbirth because that's what we're talking about. Like, that would be awful if you broke your leg while you were giving birth. But say that happened, like you would get weeks of care, follow-up appointments, people would be checking in and people wouldn't expect you to be okay. Like, they'd be like, okay, you were injured, wait on you kind of hand and foot. And I feel like depending on your situation, that sometimes happens. Like, I'm in Canada, we do have 6-week or follow-ups for 6 weeks, but then there's nothing after that unless you like actually set something up and like usually pay for something. But that's what's covered in Canada. I don't know if it's the same across the world or America, but what was I saying? But yeah, past that 6 weeks, there's nothing. Like with a broken leg, you get physio, you get follow-up appointments. There's lots of other things. My mom broke her leg and it was months of follow-up care. I feel like maybe a broken leg isn't necessarily like the greatest, but it's like a very obvious example of where you have a cast, you can't walk. Whereas if you're like struggling with a brain injury, like nobody can see it, right? It's the unseen, right? Like a chronic illness where maybe you're in pain all the time. That's another thing I want to talk about is how you like trauma isn't necessarily, it's not like one traumatic event. Trauma can happen from repeated small events over time. Like, you know, say when somebody's tortured, it's not like one big traumatic event, it's like a lot of trauma over time. So an example of this is sleep deprivation. They literally use sleep deprivation as a method of torture because it breaks people's minds. And that is what a mother goes through when they have a baby. Like, that's just one aspect. Like, think about that. Having a baby is literally the same technique. Wait, I'm not saying that quite right. Having a baby causes the same effect, no sleep, as a torture technique. I have not seen it anywhere. I probably maybe should see if there is, but I do research on this, but I haven't seen it anywhere where trauma and elements of motherhood creating trauma and linking that. Like, we talk about postpartum depression and we think about it as in like happening right after, but it doesn't always happen right after. There are many ways for postpartum depression to happen and when it happens. And I was having this conversation because I was talking about postpartum and I was like, I'm 8 years postpartum with my first and I like still have depressive episodes. I don't know that it's 100% related to my postpartum depression, but I think that once you get depression, you're kind of always like gonna have it. I don't think it like goes away. Like, you can learn how to deal with it more, and depending on like the level of depression, there's levels. There's like a little bit depressed and then like not functioning depressed, need meds depressed. Like, there's many variables and we kind of just like, again, gloss over it. Oh, it's just it's postpartum depression. It's just that's all that we talk about. And we talk about it being normal, but you shouldn't get it. Like, it's so, the language around it is just so weird and funny and not in a ha-ha way. And so I'm going to talk about like my experience giving birth and how it was traumatic. And I think that that's possibly part, or it is part of what caused PTSD. Now, what I've had, yes, PTSD, but postpartum depression, because depression is a symptom of PTSD. And so maybe I would have gotten postpartum depression if I hadn't had a traumatic birth experience. I don't know. I don't like I mean, I've heard of birth experiences that are beautiful and lovely and everything just went perfectly or whatever. And I'm so happy for those people. However, I don't know that that's the norm. Like, I feel like, especially with a very time to get Evie, our very medicalized society, like everything is like in the hospital. It's so, I don't know, we're like set up for surgery. We're not set up to give birth. Like even in the labor and delivery, like it's so sterilized and medical and not, I don't know. I feel like this is another topic. But anyways, I forgot what I was talking about. Memory loss is a sign of brain injury, or a symptom rather. So I have a whole list. Of changes to the brain. So how does trauma change the brain? There's neurotransmitter changes. Well, what does that mean? This is mood regulation. So it's how your hormones, and I guess not all of these are hormones, but like serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. So these regulate your mood and your stress response symptoms. So like most or a lot of moms are anxious after giving birth, right? So there's that. There's the hormonal imbalance. So this is separate. So I always get confused with like serotonin and dopamine. They're not hormones, I don't think. They're neurotransmitters. I'm not the expert here. Experts want to weigh in. I'm happy. I'm just speaking of my experience. And then like while reading this book, I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds like my experience. So there's, yes, trauma triggers the release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, and chronic exposure to these. So say you're always in a fight or flight state. So you're always getting cortisol pumped through your body and adrenaline. And maybe it's not always like it, but you're so high levels of cortisol, high levels of adrenaline, say they're not regulated, they're high. This leads to problems with memory and increased anxiety because your brain is not meant to function with that high of hormone, that type of hormone. Altered brain functions, changes in brain structure, so it says trauma can lead to a reduction in the size of the hippocampus, which can result in impaired memory and difficulty with retaining new information. How many mothers are like, oh, I can't remember anything now? I mean, there's more than just trauma with memory, but like this makes sense. And it says impact on neuroplasticity. It says trauma can affect the brain's neuroplasticity, hindering its ability to recover from injury and adapt to new situations or environments. It's a new situation. Having a baby is a new situation. All this is just like, oh. And then increased sensitivity to future stress. So like once you're stressed, your brain is primed now to be stressed. Like all of this is not new science. None of this is new science. I feel like there's a lot more study on the brain and trauma. Okay, I got interrupted. I forgot what I was talking about. Oh, trauma. Okay, so they talk about sports injuries in there and how the brain injuries are being studied more, and so that there's more information about brain injuries and trauma and PTSD and all this stuff. But it's all because of like male bodies, right? Like sports is very much a male dominated thing. And they talk about military, right? Now it's less male dominated, but it's still more male than female. And of course, back like in the early days, it was all men. So all of this relates to men. So of course, they're not going to relate it to like pregnancy and giving birth and all this stuff. And like the physical trauma on the body and can relate to like mental trauma, right? Like everything is processed through our mind. So the pain of giving birth, being in pain that long, and many things. So when I'm going to talk about mine experience now. So when, first of all, I was in labor, or at least having contractions enough that I couldn't sleep for like 2 or 3 days before I actually gave birth. And because I was like 8 days like overdue, they had me on the induction list. So they were going to call me in the day I went in anyways, but my water broke and it was green. They always tell you to go in, right? Because of the meconium in there. So I went in and told them, and they're like, oh, well, you're on the induction list anyway. So I think they were going to send me home, but whatever. So that was like 9:00 in the morning. And then, so because I was exhausted and had been in pain for like 3 days, like having all these like crazy contractions, hard enough to like not be able to sleep, but not close enough together to actually be in active labor. So I got the epidural. I think it was in the afternoon. It was like 1 or 2 or something like that. And then once I got the epidural, everything kind of slowed down. Like the contraction slowed because I wasn't like so close to active labor. So everything slowed down. I was able to get sleep, which was great because I was still there till like 9 o'clock. Or that, well, that's when I technically gave birth. Anyways, so at like 6 o'clock, they're like, okay, well, nothing, we're not progressing enough here. Like, we can't send you home. You have an epidural, so we can't like send you home, and hopefully it speeds up. And they were trying to induce me and give me Pitocin or oxytocin, whatever it is that they give to induce you and to speed it up. And every time they did, Evie's heart rate kept dropping, so they couldn't speed it up medically, and my body just wasn't progressing because I'm just laying there, right? So as it was at that time, it was not a walking epidural, or I mean, even though it was technically a walking epidural, it was very, very hard to walk. The epidural I had with my son was way better. Anyways, so at 6 o'clock, they're like, okay, if nothing progresses, like, we're going to get you into a C-section. Like, we're just kind of waiting on the surgery room. Like, we'll get you in there, and we're going to have a C-section. And I was like, okay. And so already I'm starting to get stressed out. Interestingly enough, my body and I looked outwardly very, very calm, but I think it was because I hadn't yet processed what was going to happen. And that is like one way of me, like, that's how I deal with stress, is I get really like still and quiet. So they're monitoring me, and oh yeah, they keep like saying, okay, we're going to get you in, and then all of a sudden there's an emergency C-section for twins. And so then I get bumped, which is okay, whatever. I'm just lying there, like, whatever. And then eventually Evie's heart rate like dropped again, this time with no, other than the epidural, no drugs. And we had to, they couldn't, like, they would get me to roll back and forth to like bring the heart rate back up, but that wasn't working. So they got me to, oh my gosh, it's so long ago. I think they got me up in like all fours somehow. I don't know what they did this time, because I had an epidural. I couldn't really move very well. Like, they sit me up maybe. I can't remember. Anyway, so they got it back up, but because it had dropped and was so hard to bring back, they're like, okay, we need to get you in now. Like, we do not like this heart rate dropping thing. So now it's like, I'm signing stuff. I don't even know what's going on. Like, so we get wheeled in, and I'm on the operating table, and then so you're laying like this. It's like a fucking cross. Your arms are strapped down, so like you don't do anything to like affect the surgery that you're about to have. I think they've put up the shield or whatever, and Rob leaves and gets changed into scrubs and comes back, and they're setting everything up, and everything's moving so fast, and they're like talking to me, and like, everything's good, like her heart rate's up, and I'm starting to hyperventilate. And look, it's still affecting me now. So the reality is hitting me now, right? Like, I'm about to get fucking cut open, and I'm awake. So what happens next? Okay, so they're like, my memory of this is very foggy. So they go to test, like, they do like a little prick on my stomach, and they're like, can you feel that? And I'm like, yes, I can feel that. And they're like, is it like pressure or is it pain? And I'm like, it feels like you're poking me with something sharp. And they're like, okay. So they give me, the anesthesiologist comes over and gives me like another dose for the epidural. And I don't know if it's because I was on the epidural for so long or what, but they prick me again after letting the dose like kick in. And they're like, can you feel it? And I'm like, yes, I can still feel it. It still feels the same. And then they're like, okay, well, we're going to have to put you under. And side note, I learned later that the like skin type or whatever that I have like light eyes. I've got a lot of green in my eyes, I'm pale, like I get moles, I get sunscreen or sunburn. And so she's like, people with those type of genes tend to have a really high tolerance to pain medications. She's like, okay, let me know if you need extra. I'm going to give you extra to start, but let me know if you need more. And she gave me 3 shots to like numb the where she was removing the mole, and I could still feel it. I'm just like, just go. I don't fucking care. Just get it out. But I could still feel it. It was very, very painful. So I'm really glad that I told them that I could feel it, because I would have been in a lot of pain awake. So anyways, I had to be put under and didn't even see my baby until like after I recovered. So I was asleep for my child's birth. And so that has affected me and stayed with me. And it still is affecting me. Interesting point to this is, so I was pregnant with my second, and I went into the hospital to like try and book a private room, because after giving birth, a private room is awesome. Anyways, I walked past the like recovery room, and I don't even remember like being in there. I just remember coming out of it really. I mean, I like vaguely remember, but I didn't remember like where specifically it was. And I walked past it, and I just felt this like huge wave of anxiety. I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, oh, I was walking, and I kind of figured out, I was like, oh, that's where I came to recover. And so I found that very interesting, that my body had a very physical reaction to something that I couldn't even mentally remember. And so that is a very interesting thing about trauma. It's like totally unexplainable physical anxiety. Like I went and sat in my car and I had to like do some deep breathing and being like, what the fuck just happened? Like that's how much it affected me. And I was not treated for any of this. I was not, and this is like definitely like part of it's on me. Absolutely. I take responsibility for the fact that I never asked for help. And yet I didn't know this stuff. Like I didn't realize that I was like traumatized and therefore had PTSD. It really didn't until I had that like physical experience. Plus, like I've done a lot of metaphysical type study and how energy and how our body's energy and everything is affected by that. So I've done a lot of like spiritual metaphysical exploration. And so that has explained a lot of, or I have words, I guess, now for a lot of that stuff, but I didn't before having EB. So that I would say is like a more traumatic birth experience. I wouldn't say that is your average birth experience. But going back to the fact that it was glossed over, I would tell people about it and they'd be like, oh, that sucks. But it's good that you and babe are doing good now. Our society has a really hard time dealing with shit, with people's emotional shit, with trauma shit, with all of that stuff. Like people have a hard time with hard conversations, and those are all hard conversations. And so we never talk about it. And so moms are kind of left out high and dry here because we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it in the realm of motherhood. Like we don't talk about trauma in the realm of motherhood and how much it can affect how you mother. Like if you had a brain injury, like a physical brain injury, like you got in a car accident, you had a freaking concussion, right? Or even something like more dramatic. I don't know what's more dramatic than that, but some sort of like crazy injury where they're like, you had to be cared for while you had a baby, you would get so much help. Maybe not everybody, but like there would be more help. People would be like, oh shit, you have a brain injury? Like, okay, let me help you with your baby. But because it's invisible, there is not that support. There's this kind of unspoken like, oh, well, you chose to have a baby. You should just be able to handle it all. You should just be able to do it all. All the stuff that comes with being a mom, you should just be able to do it all. I know a lot of like that certainly comes like from me. Like I have that perspective for me, not for other moms, but for me, like I have my own standards of like unrealistic, but standards of like, oh, I should be able to do that. I'm their mom. Like I should be able to do that. I don't need to ask for help. There's my own stuff around like the not needing to ask for help, but it's exacerbated by trauma and the need for more help. But I felt it would be like a weakness to, well, I didn't even have the language for like, I had a traumatic brain injury, a psychological brain injury. I didn't have that language. I didn't know that. So to even ask for, be like, no, I'm like injured. I need help. Or like, I never got help with the postpartum depression. I didn't even really know what it was, but like looking back after, I was like, oh shit, like reading symptoms of postpartum depression, I'm like, oh shit, I had that for sure. Like reading this book, Traumatic Psychological Injury, I 100% had that. And I knew like to some degree that it was a traumatic birth experience, but I didn't have the language and I didn't have that knowledge of like how trauma affects you. And I feel like that list that I read is true for many mothers with a lesser traumatic experience than I have had. Like I've had babies that sleep well and I'm still up in the middle of the night. So to have, even now I have like an 8-year-old, get up in the middle of the night because she wakes up sometimes. So I say all that. I think I'm going to do a part 2 on this. Like, okay, so great. Being a mother is fucking traumatic. What now? Right? So I want to wrap my head around that a lot more because I have ideas, but they're fragmented right now. So I'm going to do a part 2 on this. So I'd probably call it that. Being a mother is traumatic. What now? Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was like useful and gave you language, even if maybe your experience isn't traumatic. I don't know why you'd be watching this if you don't feel like some of the things I was talking about, like memory loss and the stress and the anxiety and all this. Like maybe you didn't have a traumatic birth experience or traumatic mothering experience, but you still feel those things. Like I haven't talked to a mom who doesn't feel those things. And so maybe it's given you some language around what's happening with that. Or if not, if you know somebody. Before we go, I also wanted to talk about mothers with either special needs kids, or even if they're not necessarily special needs mothers who have had to have their baby in the NICU. That's neonatal intensive care unit. That is a whole nother level of trauma. To be separated from your baby and to it be in a medical environment and you have to like basically live at the hospital to take care of your baby, like, oh my God, that's just next level. And there's 100% traumatic. That is a traumatic mothering experience. And then to also have that, and then many times, if you have a special needs child, often you are in the NICU to start, maybe not always, but so you have that experience. Plus, then you come home and have now to take care of the special needs child, just with more needs than your average child. So that is a traumatic mothering experience. Like, holy shit. Anyways, this is a heavy topic, but it needs to be talked about because so many mothers experience it, don't have the language for it, don't even know what they're going through. And they're like, what the fuck did I sign up for? And then it's glossed over and we are told to just suck it up. You chose this. Just keep going. Like, we don't want to talk about this because it's uncomfortable stuff. So bye. Like, fuck you. We need to talk about this. Anyways, I am going to make a part 2. So keep an eye out for that. If you want to follow me, I am on Instagram at Hey Rachel Brooks, TikTok, same handle. I can put the links for that down below. I do free clarity calls. So generally these calls are just, help you get clear on like where you're struggling being a mom and like what is your next best step to help you get out of overwhelm. But if you just want to talk about your birth experience, you're welcome. Feel free to book a call, even if it's not necessarily about getting clear on something and just want to chat about trauma and be like, hey, like this resonated, like what happens now? But also I will do a second part and talk about like how you move forward from that. Thank you so much for watching. Share this with somebody who needs it, and I will see you next time.